So how did this project come about?
So, it's interesting. Kind of came about in a few ways. So I got introduced to theatre as a very little kid. So like my gran used to take me when I was 6 to Sheffield Crucible and Sheffield Lyceum. So I used to kind of go along to that, and I've always really loved it. But I never really considered it as being something that I would make or get into, maybe from the acting perspective, but less so on the writing. I was kind of always more interested in prose and screenplays. But, you know, I wanted to write since I was 6. I wanted to act since I was in my teens. I've kind of tried to pursue that in various ways, some successful, some less successful, all the way up until now. I don't know, it kind of just, I suppose in the end, it kind of just felt a bit inevitable to me that I would end up kind of combining these two things that I really love into one project. But really, I suppose it's more from the personal circumstances that brought it about. I have suffered with anxiety for basically my whole life. I probably wouldn't have called it that years ago, but now I think I can look back and even things from when I was like 6 or 7, I can probably attribute to it. I was diagnosed with OCD at quite a young age as well. It kind of built up in me over time for quite a long time, like quite a few years, just kind of layer upon layer upon layer of all of these anxious thoughts and feelings. And then I decided to have a bit of an adventure after the pandemic. I went to LA and I studied at Lee Strasberg Institute, which was great. I mean, I've got lifelong friends from it. I've got a lot of experiences that I really enjoyed. But I also did the very cliche thing of kind of getting my heart broken, coming back. And then I think a lot of the anxiety that had been building for a really long time kind of exploded with feelings that they were too complex for me to work out. And it was a very, very painful time. And I think that it forced me finally to stop running from myself, start to realize kind of what my problems were, and then actually take some steps forward, both with healing myself and with pursuing the things that I wanted to do. Because if I'm honest, I hadn't written a word for about 6 years before that, despite saying all the time, I want to write, I want to write, I want to write. Never, I just didn't. There were always excuses, there were always reasons. And yeah, I think that this play, it's got like a duality to it, because it's kind of about those experiences, but it's also come as a result of them. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that healing. So yeah, that's why this project kind of means a lot to me. It's quite a big piece of my soul, really, I suppose, that I put out, which is vulnerable, but also, I guess, quite liberating as well.
So you're acting in it, you're directing it, and you've written it.
Yes.
Do you think that's a slightly insane endeavour?
Yes.
What part of it do you think, I guess it's hard to say because you haven't started the acting process, but...
Yeah, not so much so far.
What part are you anticipating is going to be hardest?
The writing was hell. Like, absolute hell. Like, I tore my hair out every day. I ruined the lives of friends and family members.
I can imagine. Quite glad I missed that process.
Months on end, I had to take myself off to a hotel because I was like useless at doing it. Even then, I only came out and I had one paragraph, but it was a paragraph I needed to get finished. Really, really, really good paragraph. Have I changed it all since? Yes. Not the point. All of it's difficult, to be honest. The writing's hard because it feels like you're dragging something out of yourself. The acting's hard because it's all you. You're all on show. Mm. And really, the entire weight of the emotional impact for the production is kind of on my shoulders, because if I deliver it badly, nobody's going to get anything from it. It doesn't matter how well written it is. It's a lot of pressure. Mm. But then on the directing side, on the production side, there's just a lot to do. Like, the organisation is unreal. I feel like I have to split myself into so many different parts and then go back and forth between and try and juggle everything. So yeah, I think the acting is going to be tough, but I also think it's going to be really enjoyable. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that. I'm
excited to see you act.
Yeah,
I haven't seen you act before, unless you've really just been lying this whole time.
Yeah, true. To be fair, that would be yeah. I'm not that good.
Cool.
Yeah, no. You'll be pleased to know. No,
that is a relief.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is Boxing about then?
Okay, so I'm going to try and kind of give a bit of detail without giving the entire plot away, because obviously, I want people to come watch.
Cue the camera.
Yeah. Come see it, guys. Tickets available.
£16.
The best way to describe it is, so you're introduced to a main character. All she's introduced as is A. Mm-hmm. She's in a bare little room, pretty much the bleakest place you could possibly be. The light's on all of the time. There's no doors, there's no windows, there's no fresh air. It's boring. It's dull. It's completely unstimulating, and you have no idea who she is or how she got there.
Okay.
Ostensibly, she's alone. Except she's not. Because sharing the room with her is a very innocuous brown wooden box that just looks like it just got left there. But it's got a lot to say.
Yes, do you?
As do I.
Is it modelled on you?
Yeah. Yes, partly.
Oh, wow.
Partly in some ways, partly not. But yeah, you'll have to see. So yeah, that's kind of the basic premise. I will not say more than that for now.
Go watch it, guys.
Go watch it.
Boxing has a lot of themes of OCD and anxiety.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that these are things that you have.
Yes.
How important do you feel that these are accurately represented on stage?
I think we've got a bit of a problem in society at the moment with how we, I suppose, draw attention to, heal, discuss mental illness, especially online.
Yeah.
Although I think it's good that obviously, in comparison to things like the 70s and 80s when people just didn't talk about it at all and it was kind of hushed under the carpet, I think it's a very good thing that people are open about it now and that you can talk about things. That said, I don't think social media has been very good in terms of spreading the right information and the right approaches in terms of how to tackle it. It's not one size fits all. But what I will say is that I think there are some quite overly regimented descriptions of it online. There are things that are just not necessarily conducive to helping yourself. And for a long time, I kind of didn't get help for ages because I kind of felt like my brand of anxiety didn't really necessarily fit with the way that people online were maybe describing it. So, for example, I don't have social anxiety. That's just not necessarily something that I have. I don't sit and panic about talking to people. I'm not bad with new people. So I kind of thought, oh, well, I can't have anxiety. Until as I mentioned, the particular low point, I'd also never had the experience of not being able to leave the house or being scared to go outside. That was something that my kind of anxiety just didn't manifest itself that way. And so for ages, I kind of thought, well, I can't be anxious because I'm not like that. That's not something that I do. I don't think that helped at all because anxiety's got a lot of forms. And especially with OCD, I have a form of OCD called pure OCD. And basically what that is that all of the compulsions that you have are mental and internal, or 90% of them anyway, maybe not all of them. But, you won't find me kind of, turning light switches on and off. You won't find me trapped in my house because of, not needing to press buttons a certain way. You won't find that. But what I do, and this is why it took me a very, very long time to realize that I actually had this problem, is it's a lot of excessive rumination, a lot of reassurance seeking, and a lot of reviewing past events to kind of find inconsistencies. Because OCD it's the doubt disorder, right? It makes you doubt basically everything, and it means that you can't really win against it. The more that you try to argue with it, the worse it gets, because you just end up spiraling, because there's kind of no way in. Because you can doubt anything, right? We can doubt that we exist right now. I can doubt that this is paper. I can doubt that you're a human. I can doubt anything.
Yeah.
So OCD can always beat you and always win. And the trick is to not engage with it as much and not constantly try and neutralize every negative thought that you have with a positive one. And I kind of feel like online at the moment, and just in society in general, I feel like there's very much this idea that if something makes you uncomfortable or upset or nervous or scared, it's a sign that you just shouldn't do it. And I think that even goes as far as kind of responsibility towards other people. It's kind of if people get nervous about anything, there is a bit of a protect yourself back off thing. And it's frustrated me for a long time, because one of the main things that anybody will tell you if you go to an OCD therapist, and although it's specific to OCD, I do think it's relatable for a lot of people, because OCD isn't necessarily a different brain pattern. It's just kind of a more extreme version of what everybody else does. So to me, this is applicable to everybody. But they always say avoidance makes it worse. The more that you try to avoid a problem, the more that you try to kind of turn away from it, the worse your anxiety gets. And I feel like that's kind of the opposite message that we're kind of receiving at the moment. So for me, it was really important when putting the play together to make sure that I was not only accurately depicting it, but making sure to not view it as though it's okay to shut yourself away from the world and not try and kind of really go into that protective cocoon, because actually you're making yourself worse. And I definitely made myself worse by avoiding a lot of things for a long time, especially career related. That's what I did all the time. I think when I had that realization, it was just something that I had to put down in some way. And I had to, because it's really been kind of like a life-changing moment for me. I suppose the other reason as well is, you know, OCD is probably one of the most like misunderstood conditions that you can possibly find. I mean, you can't really go anywhere without people being like, oh, I'm a bit OCD with that, or like, oh, I line my pencils up, so I'm OCD. And it's like, that's not what it's like. It's crippling doubt to the point that it can mess up all of your interpersonal relationships, your career. It can hold you back in so many ways. And I kind of wanted to show it as it is for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think what's so clever about your play is it's a very nuanced look at OCD and anxiety. It's not as simple as the character is OCD or the box is OCD.
Yeah.
It's got so many levels to it of things that you wouldn't. And people in the audience, maybe they're not been diagnosed, maybe they'll never be diagnosed. Yeah. Maybe they only have some elements of it, but they can see parts of it in themselves that they wouldn't have recognized because it's not something that people talk about. Because it's not, doing light switches, and it's not organized pens, and it's not obsessive cleaning. So yeah, I think it's a really well written play, and it's so cleverly nuanced. So yeah.
I hope so. That's definitely what I hope to show, because just to counteract the slew of information that seems to just kind of disprove everybody's feelings, I suppose, because that's honestly what happened to me for so long. And I don't think that the level of adrenaline and cortisol and just general stress and self-criticism, I don't think it'd have built up in my system to this extent if I'd have sought help earlier. So I wanted to kind of do something about that kind of generalized reductive approach that I see everywhere and offer something a bit different.
And in terms of the staging of the play, it's very much a bare room, a box and girl, a bit of furniture.
Yeah.
What did you want to do?
Well put, thank you.
Yeah, right. I mean,
where were you when I was doing my production proposal?
I know, box and a bed and a girl. I mean, that's it. But what were you hoping? What was your inspiration for it? What did you want to convey with that staging?
In terms of her just being in the one space.
Yes, in terms of not having any additional rooms at all.
So for a few reasons, the first one being that, and I think that it's okay to admit this, like I can say this without shame now, which I think is important. Like it's important to kind of hold yourself to account, but also not load guilt on yourself. But anxiety makes you selfish. It just does. Like it makes you self-absorbed, because you're just so in it that you can't see past your own problems. Literally, your world shrinks and the rest of the world disappears. And it does kind of feel like being in a prison of your own mind, because you're not, like, people are talking to you, you're not listening. Yeah. Like you're off in your own head. I had that just so many times. Like people would be telling me stuff and I just feel anxiety just creeping up, because I was thinking about all the things I was worrying about and desperately wanting to like share it, get reassurance, try and like go over it. It was almost like these are my loved ones, like sharing their lives with me.
Yeah.
It was like taking time away from me and my own worries and my own thoughts. So it really is that isolating. I did want to close her off away from the rest of the world. And I didn't want to explain, I don't want to explain kind of why she's there, how she came to be there, where the room is, what the room is, because I feel like it just works well as a very, very simple visual metaphor. Yeah. So yeah, that was definitely an inspiration for that.
So the play has a really clever and kind of dark humour.
Thank you.
What inspired it?
Stop it.
And how important do you think it was to balance it with some of the darker elements of the play?
Well, I think that everything exists in opposition, doesn't it, really, when you think about it? There isn't like day without night. There isn't light without dark. And I kind of think it makes the darker moments much more impactful if I kind of juxtapose them with the humour. But also, if I'm honest, I think that using especially the box as kind of quite a comedic device, it kind of creates quite an interesting reaction in a viewer. Because if you find yourself laughing in the box when really it's saying some really quite like awful, mocking, brutal things, kind of couched in this very kind of funny, dry, I suppose, tone, sentence structure, everything.
Yeah.
It really kind of makes you think, because it really is like a school bully, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like a school bully with loads of kind of people around laughing along.
Yeah,
and it kind of almost makes the audience a bit complicit in what's going on the stage, which is also interesting, because then when it gets to the more jarring moments later, it kind of turns the attention back inwards and maybe asks us, like, what are we accepting when we talk to ourselves? Because it's not funny, really. By the same token, though, the positive side of the humour for me is that I think anxiety can make you feel like you lose your personality a little bit. And by still kind of making sure that A can kind of give as good as she gets, have some humour about the situation, it proves really that she's still in there.
Yeah.
It's anxiety's not kind of ruined her completely. That's how I've felt a lot of the time. I've kind of felt like I've just been eaten up by it, but it's not true. Like, you're still there underneath it, or you're just kind of hibernating, I guess.
Hibernating whilst doing quippy one-liners to a box.
Yes, basically, yeah.
All
and if you take anything from this, that is what I would say.
So one of the things that makes your play so unique is the structure and the kind of the patterns and the cycles that play out kind of through the duration of the play.
Yes.
How did you plan to use the structure to kind of match the experience and the themes of having OCD or of having anxiety?
Okay, yeah. Interesting question. So the structure played a huge part in the writing process of the play. And it was also the fiddliest, most annoying bit in the entire universe to do.
Sure.
It kind of manifests in a few ways. So obviously I've got kind of, in the first sort of couple of scenes of the box, there's a lot of obsession and a lot of overthinking. And it's kind of, again, dressed up in quite a humorous way, but that really does reflect kind of that sort of anxious, continuous rumination on issues and the doubt and the going back and forth. A lot of the scenes, they do reflect kind of certain specific experiences that you have with anxiety and with OCD. So one of them being, for example, one of the scenes features a backdoor spike, which, for people who don't know, is basically when you get a reprieve from anxiety for a while, and then you become anxious that you're not anxious. Because you're so accustomed to that feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, how messed up is that?
It is insane.
It's like, really? Can I not have 5 minutes peace? But no, is the answer.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you get that peace, you start questioning why you've got that peace. Then you start thinking, oh, something's going to go wrong because I wouldn't be feeling like this if not. And then, like, you start panicking that you're being lulled into a false sense of security, and then boom, anxiety's back.
Wow. So
I kind of use the structure, use the box to kind of work on that. But also one of the main structural thing for me is kind of interspersing all of the scenes with the box with monologues, and then changing the sense of time with them. Like, I try to play with the tempo quite a lot throughout the writing process. And in the scenes, you really have no idea. You have no idea whether it could be a day, it could be a year. You have no idea. But in the monologues, it's still quite ambiguous, but there is a kind of vague thread of time that holds it together. Not only that, it's rooted much more in the outside world. I feel like it ties the structure together in that kind of like, I'm trying kind of way, all while building up to a climax. And that's essentially what happens with an OCD spike. Because you think about something, you try and reassure yourself, so you go, oh no, and you just sink further and further down, and you just get worse. That was it, really, really kind of playing with that and using those cycles to reflect kind of obsession, compulsion. It was a really big theme for me.
You did it well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm glad you told me that. If you told me that 6 months ago, I'd have been not very happy because I was struggling to make it work. It was rough.
When did you change it?
Repeatedly over time.
In a cycle?
In a cycle, yeah. Let's see what you did there.
So, the stakes in the play are very personal, they're very internal. They're all kind of contained within the character of A and her everyday struggles.
Yes.
What was your thought process behind it, and what kind of influenced you to write it like that?
I think I've mentioned, I guess, that you know, anxiety is a very, very kind of introspective struggle. That said, I really have such a lot of material from my own life of kind of anxiety making bad situations worse. And I just thought some of these are gold.
Yeah.
I have to use them.
100%.
And especially with the monologue scenes, like I mentioned, that are kind of more rooted in external, I was like, that's just a perfect opportunity. And for example, I worked a really, really awful fine dining job as a waiter. And oh my God, I tell you what, if you didn't have anxiety going into that job, you'd bloody have it afterwards, because it was like the military, like it's awful. It's like Gordon Ramsay on steroids. Like I got shouted at from multiple different directions every day. Nothing I did was right.
Wow.
It's basically like The Box, essentially, but just it happens to be just like multiple different humans all just on at you. And I just thought it's just gold. And I did that job at a point when I was trying to heal. The worst possible job I could have done. Like it was awful. It was awful. Like it was exhausting and dreadful. So that I just thought it's just perfect. But also, I suppose, I'm quite a political person. The play isn't about that per se, because, as I said, I really wanted to focus on the introspection. That said, I don't think you can separate kind of humanity and personal issues from kind of the wider global political economic structure. They're very brief snapshots, obviously, and a lot of them are ambiguous, but I really wanted to kind of at least have a little flavour of the fact that living in this kind of aggressively individualistic capitalist structure does not help young people whatsoever, either with mental health or anything, because you can't have kind of constant worry for your future, financial struggles, difficulties getting a job, retaining a job, even coping in that job because the conditions are so bad. And also while trying to kind of maintain personal relationships in a world where that's very disconnected. None of that helps with anxiety at all and mental health. That's why so many of us are sick. And so, yeah, I think it was important to me to kind of root that in very much like a loss of community, because I do think that's a huge problem. Yeah. So, yeah. But mostly, if I'm being honest, mostly just the humour, laughing at myself. like I had to.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you've got stories like that, you've got to fit them in, right?
Yeah. Surely. And I also am like, if I had to suffer in this job, all of you can see it and suffer as well.
That's how writing should be.
And it's a cautionary tale. Do not work in a fine tiny establishment in Mayfair, guys. It does not end well.
I would have probably guessed that in advance. Start the play reads very similarly to a fairy tale. Little girl comes across a mysterious, shadowy voice. Given that it's not the same as the girl sitting in the room,
yes.
What influenced you to begin like this?
Okay, so I wanted quite an impactful opening to the play, but also the fairy tale theme, it just is something about it that's always kind of grabbed me a bit. I was like probably most little kids were. Like I had a massive book of fairy tales. It was like this big. It was like red and it had like Mickey Mouse on the cover in gold. And it was just full of basically every fairy tale that you can possibly think of. Loved it. One of the things that stimulated my imagination the most as a kid, which I think is true for everyone to an extent. And that's what they exist for, like a little bit of magic. But also I thought that it was very interesting to kind of play with it, because anxiety is at its heart a misuse of imagination. So I kind of wanted to root it back into the kind of area that it's supposed to be almost by making kind of, however you want to interpret the voice in the well, whether you want to view it as the box, I don't know. That's obviously up to you. But, a kind of malevolent voice in a well, I kind of wanted to dress it up as a bit of like almost like a fairy tale villain, because it just makes it easier to deal with. It's like strangely comforting to be able to do that, I suppose. And when you think about all of the villains from fairy tales, you kind of like, you love them as much as you do the heroines and the heroes in some sense, because the story won't be anything without them. And I think that is also true of our anxious parts, because they are protective at the root. I think giving it a fairy tale theme, it because it's kind of so childlike and it's written in such a childlike way, it captures interest, but also in the context of the whole play, it kind of inspires compassion. And really that's kind of one of the main things that I think we should offer to those parts of ourselves anyway.
So one of the main themes of the play, one of the main kind of emotional struggles for the character there, is the breakdown of a same-sex relationship. As a queer person yourself, how did you want to represent it on stage?
On the one hand, it was quite obviously tough to delve into, but on the other, I kind of felt like it would be a almost a betrayal of myself and my own experiences. I did, because you sit sometimes, I feel like, as a queer person, and you worry about whether it's going to be accessible. And then you think, God, that's some real kind of heteronormative bullshit that I've kind of absorbed, like as though it's somehow not going to be relatable, but it's just standard heartbreak. It's not kind of something special just because it's queer. And I think that it was really kind of important for me to kind of honor that part of myself and honor what I've experienced, and also kind of, I suppose, give back to that kind of teenage version of me that was nervous and had quite a lot of shame in that area. And I don't have that anymore. And I think that was also important for me because she has a lot of emotional struggle. She has a lot of anxiety and a lot of worries, but her sexuality is not one of them. That is an accepted part of her in the same way that it would be for a straight person. And I think that it was very, very nice for me to be able to offer that. It's important representation to be able to see someone kind of going through all the normal ups and downs that you get with a relationship. And it doesn't have to be different just because it's queer.
So you're acting in it and you're directing it. What is the process like of directing yourself? And how has the process been, about rehearsing acting elements of it, kind of preparing yourself now that you've written it?
Hell. It's a juggling act. The worst bit for me has actually been that I can't get out of writer mode. Obviously, the directing and the production is difficult because I have so much to do. Like, I'm having to juggle the marketing and, deal with all of the kind of nitty-gritty bits of production. And so I kind of feel like I'm wearing like 17 hats at once. It's exhausting. Yeah. And I have to swap my brain and compartmentalize quite a bit. And as an anxious person, I suck at it. So that's been really difficult. But no, if I'm honest with you, it's the fact that like every time I start kind of doing any character work, because I'm working on the box at the moment, and trying to get that ready for the, official kind of recording so that it can be used as it will be in the play as audio cues. And my God, all I do is, it's like I get a magnifying glass on the script. Like, I cannot get out of the editing mode. Yeah. And it's like, it really is on its final draft right now. I've made a lot of changes. I don't need to make any more changes. I know this deep down. Yeah. But there's something, when I'm trying to act it and getting to kind of my acting headspace, I just keep wanting to edit. So yeah, that's the biggest struggle. Like, overall, I'm enjoying it. It's challenging and it's tiring, and I'm going to need to sleep in a dark room for 2 weeks afterwards and just not see another living soul. But other than that, except you, it's good. Yeah. It's what I want to, I have to remind myself it's what I want to do. Yeah. And it is. You've written it, you can be proud of the writing. When you're there, you can be proud of the directing, proud of the box recording. I mean, you've done everything. So it must be a certain kind of pride and also just accomplishment, really, at the end of the day, once you finished it. I hope so, yeah. Thankfully, as well, though, I have had a lot of help from people that I care about. So it helps. Yes, it does. It really does. And that's been really nice to be able to kind of have people that I can lean on for support, and also different people I can work with as part of the process. But yeah, hopefully pride will be the overwhelming emotion. Not embarrassment, regret. No. Suffering, pain, fire, death. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but yeah. But we'll be proud of you. Thank you. And the thing is, I noticed you don't do a lot of press with the box. Do you guys have a falling out in rehearsal? Oh God, it's constant. It's a real toxic relationship going on. I have to say. It does seem it. Yeah. Is the hammer about to be brought out? She's got too many opinions. I can't be dealing with it. I can't imagine what that's like. Need that. Need the silence. And if you wanted the audience to take one thing away from the play when they leave their seats, when they leave the theatre, what would it be? Compassion. Compassion for yourself and compassion for other people, but especially the ability to kind of be gentle with yourself in a way that most of the time we're not. And that's honestly been the main thing on the step towards healing my anxiety. And I'm by no means done. I don't think you're ever done. But yeah, that's been the main tool in my toolkit. So I hope that I can pass that on to other people. That's lovely. I'll let you know if I get that overwhelming feeling when I leave. Please do. Yeah. I think the first may be relief, and then I think it'll be compassion. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I think relief, and also just a need for you to go lie down in a dark room. I think I will need to, yeah. Cool. Well, thanks. Thanks for talking to me about the play. Thank you. I know they don't always find it the easiest, but you have so many ideas. So much went into it. It's going to be brilliant. Thank you. And it has a debut run
the Old Red Lion Theatre.
Yes.
In Angel in London.
Yes, it does.
In April.
15th to the 26th of April.
Buy tickets now.
Yep. Tickets available
online.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.